problem, though, is that people don't want to hear the answer. The answer is that you can't keep printing money, you can't keep running out debt. If you were in this kind of trouble as a person, or a small business person, and you were in over your head with debt, and you wanted to get growth back again, and you're just working and working, and you can't pay the interest on the debt, well, you can't do it. You have to quit spending and pay down your debt. We now owe $3 trillion overseas. We've just been borrowing overseas. We've been living beyond our means. But we were sort of, allowed to do this because we were printing the reserve currency of the world. They still do take our dollars. So they take our dollars, sell us goods and services, and our standard of living stays up in the relative sense. It's all based on debt. It's like believing that if the banks just keep loaning you money or you get another credit card, what the heck, I'll just pay the interest with another credit card until we get too much debt. That is the problem that we're facing in this country today. There's just too much debt, and they won't admit it in Washington. They talk a little bit about it. You've heard the discussions, when it comes up to raising the debt limit and having and they can't deal with the problem, so they have a super Congress, 12 individuals that are going to solve the problem, and Congress refuses to solve. And they're talking about, cutting spending. But what are they talking about? They're talking about $1.5 trillion cuts. They're not cuts. They have nothing to do with cuts. They're talking about cutting $1.5 trillion out of $10 billion worth of proposed increases. So the increases are only going to be $8.5 billion instead of $10 billion. And they're hysterical over all these cuts. The only budget that counts is this year's budget. So it has to be cut. But the problem is, politically, everybody thinks it should be cut, but nobody wants their budget cut. So nobody wants to suffer the consequences. Now, I have a few suggestions on how to do that to get people in agreement on where to cut. Even though there's so many programs that have been developed over the last 100 years that technically we shouldn't have done, and they're precarious, it's going to be hard to finance them, and technically they don't have the funds. Everything from Medicare to Social Security. But I don't believe it's right to pick on the people that we taught to be very dependent, whether it's child health care for the elderly, Social Security. I believe there's room to cut where you can work your way out of it. Let us work our way out of this mess and at least don't put people out in the street. But if we don't do that, what's going to happen is we're going to have runaway inflation. We're going to have the continual inflation where the government's going to send out the checks, but the money won't buy anything. And so everybody will suffer the consequences then. That's why it's important that we have cuts. Now, my suggestion is very simply this, that we take care of our own. We take care of our people here at home, and we do a lot